Welcome, everybody. Chapter 34, like you can see here, the title, The Dawn of a Post-Cold War World. Who emerged after World War II? Who were the superpowers? U.S. and Soviet Union. In a post-Cold War world, who's no longer with us? The Soviet Union's no longer with us, so the story of the world is over. No. Something else has to happen, right? What's going to come around now? Well, now you're going to have the emergence of the United States as a sole superpower. And what about the rest of the world? How things are shifting and changing. So this chapter is going to be kind of the post-Cold War world. We're not going to cover chapter 35 in the textbook because that's the modern world, what the world's like today. But the book's 10 years old. So the world, that was the world 10 years ago. So we're not going to do that. So I'm going to talk, I'll do a sort of a secondary cover kind of the modern world, but we'll do that in lecture form and some homework stuff. So this is your last outline that you have to do. The book, if you feel like it, you can go turn it in the library. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could. Why not? If you don't need it anymore.
Yeah, so why would you not recommend it?
If you want to look back as you prepare for the AP exam. Memories. You're supposed to use your outline, your past outlines. A lot of kids in the afterwards. Tanya, did you ever look back at your outlines anymore when you studied for the AP exam, or were they just?
A little bit, but like not really. Like I looked at like the notes I wrote from your lectures on there.
Yeah.
Half of them I couldn't read.
Yeah, a lot of the kids are just, they're not the best tool. That's why those books are probably some of the best tools for that. But let's get into this. Okay, so tomorrow, so for next class, we're going to get to focus on China. I won't be getting to China today, and I'll get to just a little bit of Russia, hopefully. But we'll kind of we'll seamlessly put all the thing together. So we'll do one. Well, actually, we'll do two podcasts because we got this one and then the second part next time. And we'll make this a big, super long lecture. Because I've been unfortunate that I was talking to 7th period, and I didn't finish our Cold War lecture, I didn't finish our World War II lecture, and I didn't finish our World War I lecture. So I don't want this class to be lecture-based. That's why I like to have those supplemental days, day lecture, day without. But I've been focusing too much, I think, this year on too much of those other things. I have too many things I want to share with you. Oh, I want you to listen to this audio track, or do this reading, or watch that video, or analyze this primary source document, or do that. And it's just, there's too many supplemental things to do. So meanwhile, I feel that we're sort of not covering the stuff that I really want to. And I think that we get a lot out of this, even though it's traditionally, I'd say, not the best way to teach. You know, because oftentimes, do you guys daydream a bit in class?
Yeah.
Do you?
No.
No? Sometimes?
In every class, though.
Yeah. But you don't necessarily daydream when you're actively engaged. So I need to get you actively engaged. So that's why we try to do questions.
Daydream about history.
That'd be awesome. All right, so let's look here. Talk about. So today we're going to do Latin America, the Middle East, and a little bit of the collapse of the Soviet Union. Revolutions and reform in Latin America. These regions had been controlled for quite some time, but what kind of control did we see there, Yasmin? Economic control. And what country was doing the control? Controlling these Latin American countries economically, mostly.
The superpowers.
Particularly which superpower? The U.S. Why not others? What did the U.S. Anybody remember what was the name of that document that said that everybody cannot, no one's allowed in here except for us, Ryan? The Monroe Doctrine. Okay, you should have an understanding of the Monroe Doctrine. It was designed to be able to protect Latin America, but the U.S. used it as a way to sort of protect their interests. So they weren't a colony like a lot of the African countries were in the age of imperialism. But they were economically controlled. So what does that mean? It means that a lot of these places are going to be dependent on cash crops. They haven't developed real complex and balanced economies and businesses and so forth. So primarily we're focusing on cash crops, sugar and coffee and all these other things. And that's due to fluctuating prices and so forth. That's going to lead towards not very strong economies. So now, as they're going to start to kind of try to find their own way in this post-Cold War world, or even during the Cold War, you have these countries tend to take one or the other extremes. Not many of them are going to find a middle ground, particularly because they've been exploited. And people who have been suppressed usually don't go, yeah, revolution for a center Centrist, no, they look for absolute change. So the two changes you can go are left and right. Now traditionally, Matt, when we say left, what do you think of on the political spectrum? What's that? Liberal. You think liberal, communist, leftist kind of stuff, good, socialist. And you think the right, what do you think of? You think, yeah, fascism to the extreme, okay? Monarchies and the dictatorships. So you're going to have two differences. Now the U.S. is going to have an interesting issue here, is what should they do as they want to back these countries? Because remember, the U.S. doesn't want to turn them into colonies, but they still want to have influence there. Who do you think they're going to choose? What would you pick, a communist or a dictator? In many ways, if you're American in the age of the Cold War, that's not an easy choice.
Oh, wait.
Ooh.
Yeah. So normally, generally, we're going to speak that the U.S. is going to pick dictators over communists. Because the Truman Doctrine said, stop communism wherever it spreads. Even at the cost of backing dictators who aren't the nicest of dudes. Got it? Just dictators. All right, so we're going to look at a couple examples. We can't look at all the examples, every single country. Sorry, Paraguay. I'm not talking about you, but we'll look at some of the examples that best represent that. First off, Cuba. Where's Cuba located? Yeah. Just south of Florida. And we look at the Cuban Revolution is a communist revolution, but not necessarily it began this way. Did you guys see that video?
Yeah.
Yeah, remember what they said? Remember, I think it started out that they said in World War II or Nazi Germany, what did Hitler use as a scapegoat?
The Jews.
The Jews as a scapegoat, the people to label for all the problems. But Castro is going to use the Americans. So in many ways, the Cuban Revolution, led by Fidel Castro, is going to be an anti-American, anti-dictator kind of revolution. It only becomes communist afterwards. He uses communism. He becomes a communist for sure, but it's not necessarily inherently a socialist revolution.
What's that? I think it's the Brazil map.
Yes.
So Che Guevara is seen as a national hero in Cuba, or is he still seen as not good?
Yes.
Is he good or bad
Yeah.
overall?
Yeah. In Cuba, yes, seen as good, yeah.
Still not very educated.
Wait,
Mm-hmm.
what?
In Cuba, he is seen, yes, as a, in a good light, for sure, yeah. Yeah, because we'll get to him in a second. But okay, so Castro comes to power to end this economic imperialism, and what does it mean? Well, Cuba at this time period was, and it is, it's a large, in the Caribbean, it's one of the larger islands, and you can produce lots of products there, particularly sugar, and there's oil there. So it's a wealthy area that the Americans have jumped on there quite a bit. Sugar companies, oil companies, even American mobsters and casinos start getting set up there. It's a tourist destination. If you wanted to go to Las Vegas on the East Coast back in the day in the 50s, you're going to go on a quick little boat trip down to Cuba. But you realize that all of that wealth is being sent back to the United States, okay? In the end, and the Cubans aren't getting much out of it. So it becomes as an anti-American kind of a thing. And then with influences of this guy, Che Guevara. Che is a communist idealist, and he wants to spread communism throughout Latin America. So he's not Cuban per se in terms of focusing just on the one region. He is seen as representative of much larger that. Okay, and they want to be able to export this revolution to all the other countries, and that's what Che's really going to focus on. Yes?
So he's kind of like a modern day Che Guevara.
Like a Simón Bolívar, kind of the liberator, if you would. Okay. Now, and if you don't know who Che Guevara is, this is him right here. And interesting, I saw a thing about it that this is, many people feel, the most reproduced photograph in the history of the world. Because Che Guevara has become more than communist. He represents rebellion and youth, and you see his image in so many places. Has anybody ever seen these before on T-shirts or postcards or bumper stickers and stuff like that? And you wonder, who is this person? It represents so much more than necessarily Latin American communist revolutions. Yay! It's more about, like I said, about all things: revolution, rebellion, bohemian, different kind of lifestyle kind of a thing. Now, what really makes start drinking that is the relationship with the Soviet Union. And case in point are these two individuals. And who's this? Castro. And who's that guy right there?
Hoover.
Nikita Khrushchev. Now, did you guys, by the way, side note, how many people did you guys were able to listen to the audio track about Khrushchev? Yes. What did you guys think about it? A lot of information, long. Okay, somewhat interesting. I hope you found it kind of interesting that in the modern world that Stalin is not such a bad guy now, is he? Many Russians are seeing him as the great father, as the guy. He may have been a little tough, but tough times needs tough people, right?
I just had a question. It was about the Cuban Revolution. They were talking about, in the book, it said one of the things that pushed the U.S. was, it said it nationalized foreign investments.
Yes.
What does that mean?
That means it takes over. So like, in order to get oil out or to grow sugar, you need to build a plantation and oil refineries and all that sort of stuff. It's run by Shell Oil or the American Sugar Company. Well, revolution means, hey, revolution, overthrow the dictator. What about the plantation? Our government owns it now. Actually, that's owned by the company. No, it's ours. So even though it was owned, all of the foreign investments and things that they built, Cuba says they're ours now. And is America going to go? Is the country of America going to go fight for these corporations to get their stuff back? Most likely not. So that's a good question. You need to know what nationalizing is, and we're going to try to get to this as well because the big event also is going to happen in the Suez Canal. Because what will the Egyptians do? They're going to nationalize. What does that mean? It's ours now.
It doesn't work.
Right? We're going to take it over. What are you going to do about it? You're going to come fight us for it? Okay. And there was a Suez crisis that got real close there. It got pretty scary. All right. So so Khrushchev and Castro. So do you think the relationship between the two nations is going to be close?
Yeah.
What does this tell you?
Well, kind of.
Oh.
Very close. Okay? And it shows here that Castro wholeheartedly buys into this idea of communism because he's very American. And guess what? America's also very anti-Castro. It is almost like a Wile E. Coyote, a Roadrunner cartoon, the story between the two nations about how we have tried to get rid of Castro. Attempts on his life, yes, we've tried to assassinate him in some amazing ways. Okay, we've tried to send assassins down. We've tried to hire the American mob. There's rumors about their exploding cigars, about the beard cream that gets rid of his hair. There was an exploding conch shell because he was a scuba diver. Maybe he would tip over a thing and it would blow up underwater. And it doesn't work. Okay, he is the Roadrunner. Okay, I guess so. Yeah.
Shit was like the sheepdog. It's always helping him out.
Maybe. Zach.
I didn't know maybe.
Yes. Yeah, it was a great story. Did you see that about the U.S. embargo? The U.S. cuts off trade, the last thing to this day. I mean, the last thing purchased legally was JFK cigars. I mean, he had the bill ready to sign saying, we're going to boycott Cuban goods, and he just waited to get his case of Cuban cigars, but then he signed it off. Now that embargo, that's going to seal this relationship. Think of that. Anybody remember when Save Mart used to be Albertsons down here? Mm-hmm. Yes. Now what if the city of Rockland really didn't like Save Mart? Loved Albertsons. Okay. And Save Mart comes in and the city of Rockland can't stop it. Dang it. But you know what they can do? They can force all the people in Rockland not to shop there. Yes. We're going to boycott Save Mart. Yes. And Save Mart, we're not going to go in and invade Save Mart. Although we want to, but we want to be able to destroy them via boycott. Perfect. Oh no, the city of Roseville loves Save Mart.
Is that Russia?
Okay. Yes, that's Russia. So the city of Roseville is going to be determined to, they're going to send trucks in and they're going to buy their stuff. They're going to send buses in of people from Roseville. Party bus, everybody, hop on Roseville. We're going to the Rockland Save Mart. Woo! They got a disco ball and they're playing music and people go out and they're buying their goods and they're coming back. Roseville is subsidizing to try to keep Save Mart alive. Do you understand the analogy?
Well, wouldn't Rockland
Save Mart is Cuba. Okay? The city of Rockland is who?
America.
The United States. And Roseville is?
Soviet Union.
And scene. Thank you. Yeah. So that's the whole idea. Now the problem comes about is guess what happens? In 1990. The city of Roseville collapses. The Soviet Union collapsed. Who's going to keep buying all the Cuban stuff? Cuba's on this slow path of, oh my gosh, and they've been holding on for a lot longer than everybody thought. How long is Cuba going to be able to hold on? Yes?
Oh, this was about the analogy.
Yes.
For the sake of your analogy, are we pretending that Rockwood doesn't care that Roosevelt's going through them to get to St. Mark?
Yes.
Okay, never mind.
All right, so there is Castro today. Not today, this was a couple years ago. And interesting about Castro, Castro comes to power in 1959 in the revolution. Who's in the upper left-hand corner? The president who was there at the time? Dwight Eisenhower, okay, the hero of World War II. How long has Castro been around? Let's take a peek. There was Kennedy, name, Johnson, then Nixon.
Carter.
No, Ford, Carter, Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush, and you even could put Obama on there. But Castro's had a was it a stroke?
I think it's
Yeah,
right.
it was minor.
Stroke, a minor stroke about a year and a half, 2 years ago, which many thought was going to kill him. And then he was hospitalized, and people thought, oh, when somebody gets hospitalized, that means they're really dead, and we're just waiting to tell everybody. Don't know why they do that. But he didn't die. So now we see him every so often in a jumpsuit, reading the newspaper. He is no longer running the country. And everybody was thinking, our relationship with Cuba is going to change based on whoever our next president's going to be, and there was a lot of them, but all of them kept the same boycott policy. Obama comes in, keeps the same policy, wants to talk about change, then Castro gets sick, and, oh, wait a second, now Castro's brother's taken over. His much younger brother, who's only like 106. I think, I don't know, these people live forever.
Yeah, it's 20
Yeah.
years.
There's still a waiting game until the Castro's regime is gone, and then we may see some change.
We'll have a kid.
Okay,
It's a cigar.
exactly. Anyway, all right, so let's talk about another place now. Let's talk about not necessarily Cuba, but Chile, located, you hear? Chile Willy. This is a good example of the dictatorship and communist. Here we see a socialist kind of take over, this guy by the name of Salvador Allende. And the U.S.'s role here, now it's going to be the opposite. Now we're going to have a revolution that doesn't bring a socialist in control. We're going to have, the U.S. is going to back one of the military leaders to help overthrow him. Well, this guy, Pinochet, will overthrow him and have him assassinated. And then he takes over. So here is this socialist, and what he had when he took over was social reforms, like nationalizing the industries we talked about and redistributing wealth to the poor. Now when Pinochet takes over, he suspends the Constitution, gets rid of the Congress, censorship, no political parties, embarks a campaign of terror against his enemies. If I just describe the two, who would you like as a president? Redistribute wealth to the poor or campaign of terror? Who do you think most people would pick? Yes. Who do you think the U.S. picks? We pick as long as he's not communist. He's a really bad, as long as he's not communist. But what if he likes to terrorize? You didn't hear me the first time. He's not a communist. And if you look at this cartoon, this is what it says. And you have to say it in sort of a over-the-top Spanish accent. It's okay. I'm anti-communist too. And behind him, backing Pinochet, is America, as he is crushing his people who are standing for free press, civil liberties, political opposition. Yeah, he was a rough guy. He was so tough is that he was ultimately wanted to be tried for war crimes against humanity, fled to Britain, and declared that he was too sick. He had like cancer or something like that, and he said, "Oh, I'm too sick to be put on trial and stuff." And so it was a real long drawn-out affair with what was going to happen to him at the end. But he was not. He was one of the hardcore dictators. But America choosing dictators over communists, so it's a good example of that. Whoa! Now let's jump. We're done with Latin America. Let's change scenes and jump over to the world of the Middle East, the Arab world. First off, difficult to label, but what I want to talk about is this rise of revolutions in the post-World War II era of a resurgence of Islam and how it's affecting nations in terms of their politics, their future. And the two places we're going to focus are on Iran and Afghanistan. We'll talk a little bit about Iraq. Because these two places, crises in these places, are going to threaten the superpowers during the Cold War. By the way, what was the name of that, Alicia? What was the name of that conflict between the two powers, but they couldn't go against each other? They went through somebody else. What was that called? what kind of a conflict or a war? A proxy war, right? And so these proxy conflicts are going to affect and in many ways jeopardize the superpowers. The U.S. is going to react with these, often with some restraint. The Soviet Union is going to take more bolder steps, and so forth. Now, the bottom one I want you to really focus on. These revolutions in these two places are going to reflect a growing discontent of the Islamic nations and their view of modernization / westernization. Because they feel that as we move on in time, things become more modern, right? We're evolving, we're changing. But modernization doesn't always necessarily mean that we're all doing it the exact same way. But the modernization that came via the Western countries, the US and Western Europe, became the model, and others soon followed it. Some decided, I'm going to follow modernization during a different path. Now, what I mean by that is that if you're going to follow the modernization in terms of science, technology, education, what shouldn't necessarily go hand in hand with that is culture. But if you are taking all the aspects of this science, education, all those sorts of things, medicine, all that kind of stuff, culture sometimes finds its way in. And why is that a bad thing or a negative thing, or who could be resistant of that, Nikki?
Oh, I was going to say a similar thing like this happened in Japan, didn't it?
Yes, we'll get to that. We're going to talk about Japan in a second. Now, is that a bad thing that the culture comes with it?
Sometimes.
It depends on your viewpoint, right? If you're open for change, then you may be looking to, taking on new cultural aspects. Culture, though, the hard part is that many people see culture as something that is stagnant because we don't see it change in your lifetime. But culture always does change. The culture of your great-grandfather is much different than yours, even if he lived here in this area. Things change. Even in our time, have you heard your parents complain about your culture? Right? Have you seen what they're watching on the music videos and the MTV and oh my goodness, and the language and this and the Twitter and all that stuff? Okay? Things are changing, and you know what? There's usually a backlash against a change of culture. Well, you're going to see a backlash to the extreme because this culture is not necessarily within one place. It's one person's culture, one region's culture overtaking another one. And how that comes in, it's through advertising. It's through businesses. It naturally will progress, but as soon as Coca-Cola wants to start selling Coke somewhere else, you're not selling Coca-Cola, you're selling the idea of what Coke brings with it. Have a Coke and a smile. McDonald's, Levi's, all these things are going to start to spread out. People want the consumer good. I sure like that McDonald's hamburger. But if you're eating McDonald's hamburgers as a kid, it's hard to resist that clown, right? But guess what your kids aren't eating? They're not eating the cultural foods and the ways in which that you guys have sat down for your meals. Now we're driving through, picking things up as opposed to sitting down. So many places are going to backlash against that. The best example of that is the Islamic world. They're going to see that as a complete destruction of their culture. Therefore, best thing to do? There's two choices. Cut it out, eliminate it, and even what? Attack it. Okay? The easier one is to cut it out, but that's not easy, is it? How to block all Western influences by still trying to become modern? Anyway, let's talk about this here. Iran, case in point, 1979. Due to all of this, we're going to see a revolution. Where's Iran? Tough with all those lines located right there.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I thought it was one to the right.
I thought it was
Right to your left of it is what country? Iraq. And on the other side of it is? Afghanistan. Okay. Then you go into what? Pakistan and India. Okay. We need to have an understanding of all these places. But in 1979, we see a revolution. We're going to do a little bit of comparison to Cuba here. First off, the dates. 59 for Cuba, 79 for Iran. And you're going to have a revolution that's done to overthrow who?
Shah.
But who's backed the Shah? Who backed that Cuban government?
Carter.
The Americans, right? The Americans backed the Cuban Batista. America is backing this guy named the Shah. Now, who is the Shah? The Shah is a dictator who has a heavy Western influence. Which one is he? The right or the left?
That dude.
He is on the right. Is that a very traditional Persian clothing he's wearing?
No.
Or is that a kind of a Western-style military? Western. Remember we saw that same sort of picture with the Emperor Meiji in Japan about Westernization? Okay. We also see now over here on your left side, we see the opposite of that. We see traditional Islamic clothing and so forth. So this revolution is going to overthrow him because he's Western. Well, he's not Western, he's Persian, but because a heavy influence of the West and a desire to go back, like I said, to this traditional Islamic stuff, and also corruption. This guy's kind of a corrupt dictator. He's using the power and the wealth for him and his and the people that surround him. And in 1979, a bunch of people start demonstrating, and they want to be able to bring this guy to power. Now, he's a revolutionary who's spoken outwardly against getting rid of the Shah. The Shah doesn't like him and wants to capture him, so he had to flee. Okay? And he's a lot like in the Russian Revolution. Remember the Russian Revolution? Who was the leader of the Russian Revolution? Vladimir who? Lenin. Lenin spoke out against the Tsar, and the Tsar wanted him captured and executed. And so Lenin had to flee. They both flee to the same place. Anybody know what town in Europe is going to be a nice city to hang out that people aren't going to come after you?
Geneva one.
No.
Munich.
No. It's Paris, yeah. So once the revolution happens, well, bring this guy Khomeini back from Paris. Khomeini comes back, revolution happens, and now he is in power. Now what's interesting about him, they want to create a republic, but this republic is going to be led by a heavy hand of the religious group, particularly the title of this guy is called Ayatollah. That is not his name, that is his title. After him there's other Ayatollahs, okay? Ayatollah Khomeini. And so we call this, it's a republic, but it's an Islamic republic, so really a theocracy. But it's not necessarily just that, because when you think about Iran today, who is the guy that we're talking about in Iran? The president of Iran. Ahmadinejad, have you heard of him? Now, is Ahmadinejad, what is his title? Is he a religious leader? No, he is not. Yes, but he's a very strong, he's trying to centralize some of the power away from the clerics there, and he's doing a strong job at that. Interesting, too, is if you guys follow the news, what happened last year in Iran during the elections?
Were they rigged? They were pretty rigged.
People complain that, hey, a lot of people maybe want somebody besides Ahmadinejad. Well, he wins in kind of a landslide. Not a landslide, but he wins pretty easily. And the students, a lot of people, the youth who didn't experience 79 because they were what? Not born. And they start saying, oh, revolution, we want change, we want change. And Ahmadinejad says, no, you're not having change. He sends the police in and cracks down. But that is not silenced. It is still resurging, okay? This new possible revolution. But interesting, the role of the religion. Anyway, so he comes in, I like what it says there, an anti-Western conservative Islamic republic is created. That's a mouthful. They're anti-West, I understand that, because it's strong, true, traditional religious values in terms of the religion of Islam, but it is a republic. It's not strictly a theocracy. And the revolution takes place, and what are you going to do if you're the Shah? Revolution's taken over. They're bringing back the old guy. You no longer have control? Hang out and see how things... Yeah, run away. Where would you run to, Sam? Run to Paris. Yeah, what's another place? You're going to run to the United States, the people who've been backing you, okay? And so here he is, the Shah, hanging out with the President of the United States. He's hanging out at the White House. The people of Iran probably want him back, right? They would like to put him on a short little trial and then maybe a fast execution. And they say, give us back to him. And we say no. But before all that happened, guess what? In the middle of all this revolution, they decided to go storm our embassy. Our American embassy, we have guys there and all that, diplomats, and they go storm it in, the students, we can't stop them, and they take them all as hostages. And they say, you give us back to Shah, we'll give you back all your Americans. But we learned from, remember didn't we briefly talk about the 1972 Olympics, about the terrorists?
No.
We didn't discuss that?
Yeah.
Briefly. Anyway, a lesson learned is you don't negotiate with terrorists. So America says, we're not going to negotiate with you guys, give us back our people. We're not going to give you back our people, give us back to Shah. We're at a standstill. So so there's a waiting period. This ultimately is going to last 444 days. That's a long time. America's going to try to get him out. Some botched attempts. A helicopter goes in, and a couple of them and crash, and so it doesn't go very well. Basically, that's going to lead to him losing the election. And you know what the answer was? How to be able to end this whole thing? They took a while to realize it's all about money. Don't pay them, but you know what? Nobody's an island. No nation is an island. Everybody's got money in lots of different places. So they finally realized, let's just freeze all of Iran's money that's not in Iran. And next thing you know, Iran's starting to, they go to use their debit card, and it says insufficient funds. And they say, how come? They call their bank. They say, oh, sorry, your funds have been put on hold until you let go of those guys. So finally, they basically just,
Wasn't Carter criticized for not even like trying though?
there was an attempt, yes, but there was that was why he lost the election. Is people wanted full scale, getting them back now. Okay, but by going back, what's going to create? You're going to create a war with Iran, and then guess what happens? Is the Soviet Union going to jump in? Is this World War III? So that's what the fear was. So that is what loses the election for him. And it's not until actually after his Reagan is sworn in is when they let the hostages free. Okay, as a sort of a last jab at Carter there. Anyway, I love this picture here. Iran today, Iranian women serving as police officers.
Was she?
Huh? They're holding. They got weapons. One's got a pistol, and the other one's got a.
No, but what's that though?
They're guns, right? We'll call them guns. Okay. And what's interesting is, you know what this is? Hey, is this modern? Women as police officers? Yeah. Guess what it's not, though? It's modernization without westernization. Okay? And we had the same discussion, if you can remember, way back in chapter 9, I think. No, chapter 22. We talked about, remember, the hijab and the head covering? Is that subjugation of women? What is cultural and what is just subjugation? That's not a fine line, is it? Some things are pretty clear. Hey, a guy dies. Women, you should kill yourselves. Jump on the funeral pyre. Oh, maybe widow burning's not so cultural. Maybe we can make that a universal standard. Women should not kill themselves after the husband dies, regardless of what your culture used to do. What about covering your head? Okay, maybe you can allow we're full-on covering it, right? To some degree, at some point, we say, right? But this is a great visual example about how some nations want to be able to move forward, but not follow existing paths. Okay. Iran's trying that. Iran's trying reform, but by trying reform, remember I said this was a conservative republic, which is not interested. They had their revolution. They brought their theocracy republic in place. Are they interested in change? The youth are interested in change, aren't they? Hey, come on, kid, every now and then you got to stick your neck out. Sticking your neck out, though. Every revolution needs a couple good martyrs, don't they? Yeah, and even just last year in the elections, many people died. Not many. I mean, there was several. There was the one gal who was killed, and it was videoed on YouTube and stuff. No, there was a student. I forget what her name was. I'll look it up. And even this one, I like this one even better. Talking about reform. Can Iran fit that into their existing system? Fit change into their system? This cartoonist is saying no, because reform is a CD. But Iran is a phonograph. And any new changes aren't going to play on that old system. So they're saying in order for reform to happen, you got to get what? You got to go to Best Buy and buy a new system. Right?
CDs are outdated now too.
Watch it.
On an iPod.
Come on. Yeah, download. Anyway, next let's talk about not Iran, but let's move one over to Afghanistan. Lovely Afghanistan, beautiful area. Huh? Lots of mountains and somewhat very inhospitable. But it's amazing, this very inhospitable place has had a major influence on both superpowers. The Soviet Union likes to spread communism. The Americas likes to spread democracy. Well, in Afghanistan in the 1970s, there's a small group of people who want to be able to bring communism to the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union says this is a great invite for us to come in there and bring communism to them. Well, most people in Afghanistan don't want it, so they're going to fight it. The Soviet Union goes in, and the Afghans are going to try to fight back. And you would think on paper, and this is very much compared to the U.S.'s Vietnam, how could a superpower struggle with a very much under-equipped and under-trained army? A much, much smaller nation, a third world nation. But both of these nations have success based off of two things. One is what?
The terrain.
Is that the local people excel at the place that they live in, their terrain. In Vietnam, in the jungles of Southeast Asia, and Afghanistan, in the hills and deserts there, they were able to use the advantage and their guerrilla-style tactics to their advantage. The second thing that gives them success is they're not fighting by themselves. Who's got their back? This proxy war. So you got the other bad guy on their side. For the Vietnamese, they got China on their side. And in Afghanistan, the Americans start to kind of help out. America doesn't want to go to war with the Soviet Union, but we can help out these Islamic fundamentalists, these groups called the Mujahideen. Anyway, local religiously inspired guerrilla bands that control the countryside. Guess who we're fighting against, by the way, today? Local religiously inspired guerrilla bands. It's the same thing.
Sounds like a really cool rock
Okay,
band.
that is a good name. Anyway, so the Soviets are going to invade. The U.S. hates it. The U.S. hates it so much we say, you better get out of Afghanistan. If not, we won't play in your Olympics.
Oh no.
And in 1980, we say no thank you to the 1980 Moscow Games. We boycotted them. Guess where they were in 1984? Los Angeles. So what would the Soviet Union do? We're not showing up there either. So sports again being as a venue of saying a little, I don't like you. Take that. Pardon?
Weren't the 1980 Olympics like American Ice?
That was the Winter Games. These are the Summer Games.
Oh, yeah, the
Yeah. So the Soviets go sending their troops in, their tanks, tanks go on in. It's not a real, I don't know if you see the mountains, not real tanky kind of fighting. Yeah?
Why would you have summer games in Moscow?
Anyway, they send their tanks and they realize, oh, not tanks. You know what's really going to get these Afghans? Helicopters. So they start sending the helicopters in. The Afghans cannot fight against a helicopter. Okay, they're coming in and the Russians are having lots of success against them. Some Texas congressman, literal true story, sitting in a hot tub in Las Vegas, and he's watching 60 Minutes. And they're talking about, and they're doing a story about the Afghans, how they're fighting against these communists, but they don't have enough equipment, and they're fighting and they're trying, but they might not win against them. And this Texas congressman goes, you know what, man, we should help those guys out. They're fighting communism. We want to fight communism. Let's find a way. This guy's his name is Charlie Wilson. Interesting story. Just died, I think, 2 weeks ago. And a movie's created about him. Okay. And the movie is about this guy's idea to fund secretly, let's get weapons to these locally religiously inspired groups, particularly stuff that can shoot those helicopters out of the air. Okay? Let's get a missile, okay? A little hand grenade, you attach it to a little missile thing, you mount it, you shoot, and you run away. Perfect, okay? And he needs her help because she's got a lot of money, and this is his CIA agent who's going to do the whole thing, and they run this secret little organization that most of the country doesn't know about, that funds the Afghans and brings a lot of success. They shoot down lots of these Russian helicopters. Here's the Afghans. Whoop-oo, there's their little RPGs are shooting at them. The Russians don't lose a lot. 5,000 compared to 1 million? I would say that one, didn't it? No, but it depends on what you're losing. You're losing some very expensive equipment, and you are not losing and you're not winning the war. Okay? This style of warfare. So the Soviets people are going to start seeing it as an unwinnable war, bring our troops home a lot. Mirrors a lot of the Vietnam stuff that we're going to have. And if anybody seen the movie Charlie Wilson's War? Good film. The very end, I would recommend it, definitely. I'd watch it now before we finish this whole AP thing if you got time. Watch it with your parents if you can. And watch the very last scene. Great scene at the very end, where the two main characters, Tom Hanks and the other guy, are sitting out and they're hearing about the success of the Afghans, and it seems like the whole thing's over. The Soviets are pulling out, and they go walk out in the balcony, and they're looking out at the night sky, and there's a discussion, and they're hinting about what are we going to do next. We're going to stick around and help nation build these people, or are we just going to leave? And what do? We just leave, and what do we create? We create another local religiously inspired group to do the exact same thing. This time, a lot more American resentment. A lot more, so the rise of the Taliban, Osama bin Laden, and a real hint of what's to come. So, anyway, so what we call this is Islamic fundamentalism, and this is primarily a Western term. You won't necessarily hear them describe it as much. It describes the traditional beliefs of Muslims that they should focus themselves and the literal traditions of the text. Now, I want you to realize that there's fundamentalists in every religion, isn't there? Christian fundamentalists? Yeah. Jewish? Yes. Muslim? Yes. Is that the majority? No. Okay. And it's fine for everybody, right? We should believe, right, in the right to religion. You want to be a believer of this, believer of that, not believe in anything? right? Freedom of religion. The problem, though, is the imposing of when religious beliefs, people try to impose those upon others, okay, particularly when things get violent. And that's an issue that we see here, okay? We see a resurgence of this, particularly, why? With Islam, because the coming of that westernization. They see westernization as destroying their inherent core values. So in order to fight back, we need to have a resurgence in something that tells us, because westernization is also often associated, your parents may tell you, your music, the language you use, the movies that you watch, they are bad, right? Morally, ethically, it's the social decay of the fabric destroying us, right? Some people are saying that kind of stuff. And that's what they are saying here. So let's resist that. And I want to discuss this here, this cartoon. Now you see that most people in any religion primarily are on what side of the religion? To the extreme or to the moderate? Moderate. Most people are moderates in all your religions. But that doesn't necessarily make the news. You often hear about those who are on the fringes. So you can see on your left-hand side, you see fundamentalism, right? Is there anything wrong with being a fundamentalist? No. You want to go back to your core beliefs, that's fine. The issue, though, is when some of these fundamentalists feel that their religion, their culture, their way of life, their people are being jeopardized, they need to fight back. And to some extent, we see that then turn that self into a terrorist. And the beard shows how they're intertwined. And it's the impossible job of the moderate Islam to be able to separate the two. Because inherently, what do people do? Is that we generalize. And generalization is something that it's inherent in all of us. We ask you to do it even when you write your essays. Create a general statement that describes all of these things. But when we generalize sometimes, it could be something that could be very dangerous, right? But is it inherent? For sure. We've now been associated with having fundamentalists who are terrorists, have done things on planes, right? And so then have you heard the story about, hey, somebody trying to get on a plane and saw some Islamic fundamentalists board the plane right after them and they become very nervous? Has anybody ever heard that discussion before? Okay. Is it right to be able to think that, oh, this guy's a fundamentalist, that's right, he's probably a terrorist? Right? That's not right to do. Is it something that people also often associate and will do? Yes. But understand that the difference is that we can't necessarily do that, but understand the rationale and the reasoning for it. Okay? And the problem with that for the Muslim world, for these Arab states, as they try to have the rest of the world listen to them about directions that they want to go and building their countries, it's hard to hear when you got this shouting all the time. That's what we associate, not necessarily the modern countries, okay, the Jordans, the Turkeys of the world, and steps that they're trying to do. What do we hear about? We hear about terrorist this, terrorist that, okay, and it's been doing that for some time. Now, what about Iraq? Jumping back, I'm not going to do it here, but I'm going to do it in the podcast. I'm going to go back to that map, and if you guys look over here, right next to Iran, to the left-hand side, if you go west, is Iraq. Now, Iran is interesting is because when you look at that country, there's two branches of Islam. And what are the two branches? Shia and Sunni. Now, what 90% of the world makes up which branch?
Sunni.
Makes up the Sunni. Okay? But there's an issue is that in Iran, it's the opposite. Iran is the only country that is heavily majority of the opposite, of the Shia. And so this Islamic revolution in Iran is in many ways a Shiite revolution. Now, if the Muslim countries around there start to be concerned, if there's a revolution there, could there be a revolution and overthrow me? In Iraq, there's a guy, he's named by the name of Saddam Hussein. Have you heard of him?
No.
Saddam Hussein, in 1980, is frightened of that revolution because guess what? In Iraq has a large... Those numbers that I talk about, they don't go across, they don't stop at nations' borders. Once you go across a border, you still have, same religious distributions of who's what. So within Iraq, there's a lot of Shiites. And so Saddam Hussein's worried about that. So if he's worried about a revolution, what's something you could do to stop a revolution?
Kill a bunch of people.
Yeah, so he decides to invade Iran. And by doing so, stopping what he feels is a revolution in his own country. And so Iraq invades Iran, and we call that the Iran-Iraq War. And what's going to happen? Okay, both sides are going to start to go after each other, kill each other. It's getting real bad. Now guess who wants to get involved? United States. Now what would you do if you're the United States? Do you back Saddam Hussein? You know about him already, right? Dictator, right? Oppressor of his own people. Or do you back Iran? They just had a Shiite revolution. They've got your hostages. Oh, they also have a name for you, by the way. They call you the Great Satan. Who would you back?
Didn't they initially back Iran?
The United States ultimately will back both sides at different time periods, but they back the Iraqis. So we often ask ourselves, why did we had a relationship with Saddam Hussein and gave him weapons and had a positive workings with him. Why did we do that? Because we felt it was the lesser of two evils. Yes?
Didn't they also go into Iran to stop them giving the hostages back to the United States?
Who, the Iraqis?
Yeah. It said that in the book, that they came back in to stop the...
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I'll look into that.
no.
Okay, but I don't think so, though. Anyway, so fast forward, that was 1980, the Iran-Iraq War, nothing happens, okay? I guess Saddam who wins because he doesn't invade Iran, but he makes sure that there's no revolution in his own country. Well, we fast forward to the modern Iraq War that we've discussed. And now that we invade Iraq, is it really about Iraq that we've taken care of? In many ways, we did a lot more damage. We tried to bring democracy to the Middle East where it doesn't really exist. But by doing so, we didn't fix Iran. What did we kind of really do? We opened up another what? Another bottle. A lot more Islamic extremism. Anger towards America for what we've done here. Not because we overthrew a dictator, but because are we trying to take over for our own purposes? And so we start to see a much bigger issue that's developed. It's not about Iraq. Okay, it's about that is it still that East versus West? And you can take this all the way back to what we learned in chapter 10, the Crusades. Is it the Crusades all over again? Is it a Western world, a Christian world versus is it a Muslim world? Is it the Arab world versus the European Western world? We still see those inherent conflicts that are still existing that have been you could see that it's been re-popped again, that genie's come out again.